If I could meal prep only one thing every single week, it might just be a pot of brothy beans. They're incredibly nutritious and delicious, super affordable, and you can use them in so many different ways. I'm going to show you how making a pot of beans can set you up for a week of easy and healthy meals, but first I'll walk you through my step-by-step method for making them. So let's get into it. I've got a pound of dried beans here. The first thing you want to do is just check that there are no pebbles or debris in the beans. All right, pebble free. Ta-da! Now some folks will just start cooking their beans right here and now, but I prefer to soak my beans for a few reasons. One, you get fewer split skins, so you get a more even texture. You also cut down on the cook time pretty significantly, especially for a larger bean. And number three, most importantly, I fart less. Actually, when I soak my beans, I don't fart at all. I am fart free. So if you have trouble digesting beans, try soaking them first. To my soaking water, I also add a pretty generous amount of salt. This is going to soften the outsides of the skins of the beans, so they actually cook up creamier. Depending on the size and density of the beans, I might also soak them with a little bit of baking soda. This is going to help soften the beans a bit faster, but since these beans are small, I'm going to skip it today. And if you like your beans on the al dente side, I would also skip this step. These need to soak for 8 to 12 hours, which obviously we do not have that amount of time. So I'm gonna do some YouTube magic and swap these out with some beans that have already been soaked. Ta-da! Soaked beans. Well, actually, as you can see, this is a totally different variety of beans. These are some specialty heirloom beans from Rancho Gordo, which I love. But the recipe, the method we're using today, you can use with any dried bean, including grocery store beans. I use those all the time, and you will still get delicious results. They kind of look like dinosaur eggs. Rawr! Is that what a dinosaur sound makes? Or is that a tiger? Rawr. No, that's a tiger for sure. All right, let me put these off to the side and grab my little stove. You want to get a Dutch oven or a large saucepan over medium heat. Add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Let that heat up. And I'm going in with 4 medium shallots that I've chopped up. You could also use a medium yellow onion or even a large leek. Give that a pinch of salt. If you want luxurious, richly flavored beans, you want to start your pot of beans off with some sauteed aromatics. It's going to make them so much better. Once these are golden brown, should take about 5 minutes for shallots, we can go in with some garlic. This is 6 cloves of chopped garlic. And again, we're just building layers of flavor so our beans are extra delicious. Once the garlic is no longer raw, it starts to soften. It's time for our soaked beans. And of course we need some water to cook our beans, but you don't want to fill the pot up all the way up to the top. 1, it might boil over, and that sucks. But 2, when the beans cook, they release all of their delicious starches into the water. It creates this bean broth. So if you fill the pot all the way up to the top, you're gonna dilute that concentration of the broth. It's not gonna be as flavorful or as saucy in texture. You're looking to cover the beans by about 1 inch of water, maybe a little bit more. And we have 2 more delicious additions. A bouquet garni, just a fancy French word for a bundle of herbs. I always use 2 bay leaves with 1 pound of beans, and then just a few sprigs of whatever sturdy herb I have on hand. I have a lot of thyme today, but you could also use rosemary or sage or even oregano. I also like to add a couple of dried red chilies to the pot. I snip them open just a little bit. It's gonna gently permeate a mild amount of heat into the beans. But if you really don't want to use these, you can totally skip that. At this point, I'll also add a little bit of salt, not too much, seasoning in layers, about a teaspoon of kosher salt, and a lot of black pepper. Once you have all of your flavors in the pot, you're gonna bring this to a boil. I like to cover the pot just to speed it up and to prevent all the water from evaporating. You definitely don't want to cook the beans at a boil the entire time. They will cook very unevenly, but I do cook them at a boil for the first 10 minutes. I learned that tip from the king of beans, Steve Sando of Rancho Gordo, whose beans I'm cooking today. And he says, you want to show the beans in the first 10 minutes who's boss. Now, I don't know what that means in terms of cooking science, but I have been using this technique for several years and I think it works really well. So after this initial 10-minute boil, you want to make sure you lower the heat to low or just above low, where you can get an occasional simmering bubble. You want to cook this low and slow for the rest of the time. It should look something like this. And I prefer to cook my beans uncovered because the liquid's going to gradually evaporate and thicken and become more flavorful and delicious, but you might need to check towards the end that the water hasn't evaporated too much. If it has, no worries, just top it off with some freshly boiled water. Since these are gonna need a fair amount of time, I'm gonna move it over to my main stove over there, and I'll come back later when these are done. So while the beans simmer away, let's talk about how to make beans easier to digest, because I know a lot of folks struggle with that. One, you can add a strip of kombu to your beans. This is just a umami-rich seaweed. Add it while they simmer and then fish it at the end. Or you can try some asafoetida. Indian families have been using this for generations in their dals and bean dishes to help digest them better. Rather than just sprinkling it into the water, you want to add it to the cooking oil, let it sizzle for about 10 seconds because it is fat soluble. And after that, you can add the beans in. Okay. It's only been 30 minutes, but these beans are looking done a lot earlier than I expected. Unfortunately, there's no precise cook time I can give you for cooking dried beans. It's gonna depend on the size and density of the bean, the freshness of the beans, and whether you soaked them or not. I soaked these, they're super fresh, so 30 minutes was all they needed. You can scoop out your dried chilies and the bouquet garni. They have done their job. We have a few remaining ingredients. First things first, salt. You're gonna need to be pretty generous here. Beans are really dense, and this is like 6-7 cups of beans plus liquid. So if you think like a quarter teaspoon is gonna be sufficient, you're gonna need to add more than that. And then a glug of some good quality olive oil. I promised you beans that were luxurious and rich, and beans are virtually fat-free, so you need a little help in the fat department. Even a tablespoon of olive oil is really gonna make a difference here. And then I like to add a teaspoon or two of a mild vinegar, something like champagne vinegar, white wine vinegar, or apple cider vinegar, or lemon juice. And that's just gonna brighten the beans, give them a little pep in their step. That's just how much we're gonna use them. That bean broth is unreal. It is so luxurious, so flavorful. The beans are perfectly creamy and tender. And now I'm gonna show you how I use a pot of beans to make easy, delicious, and healthy meals all week long. Since this makes a big batch, it's about 6 to 7 cups of beans, the first thing I'm gonna actually do is to freeze a portion of the beans, and that way I have an easy, healthy meal I can just grab from the freezer on those super busy days. I like to use these super cubes to freeze them in 1 cup increments, and then I know exactly how much I have in the freezer, and they take less time to defrost. As far as how to actually serve the beans, there are so many different ways you can use them. You're really only limited by your imagination, but I'm gonna show you a few of my personal go-tos. As I mentioned, the bean broth has so much good flavor, so you can definitely just eat these beans straight up. It's like eating a simple yet really delicious bean soup. And you can serve it alongside a simple green salad or whatever vegetable you have on hand for a light yet satisfying meal. One of my favorite things to whip up for a lazy lunch is beans on toast. I just rub a garlic clove that's been halved across the surface of the toasted bread, spread on my favorite condiment, whatever's in the fridge. Today I have some cashew cream, and then just pile the beans right on top. Tacos are obviously a great option, and you can make them as simple or as fancy as you like. Here's a really easy option for you to try. Mash up some ripe avocado with either coconut yogurt or sour cream, a little bit of lime juice, and salt to taste. You can also stir in some minced jalapenos if you like things spicy. Spread that onto your tortillas and then add your beans. And from here, the rest is up to you. You can add your favorite salsa. I like to add cabbage slaw and then something pickled, which I always have in the fridge. Or you can just use the same fixings to make a burrito bowl and serve it over rice. I also like to use these beans as a supplement to bulk up other meals. For instance, another thing I regularly meal prep is my tofu scramble, and to make it heartier, I'll plate it with some roasted sweet potatoes and the brothy beans plus some sauerkraut. It makes for a super filling and really delicious breakfast. For a full written guide on everything we've covered today, including the brothy beans recipe, check out the blog post. I've linked it in the description box below. And I know that meal prep can be tricky sometimes, so if you want to see how I do it every week, check out this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!